know what for, really. But I do have I have a legal team. I've been charged, ladies and gentlemen, can I have an I've been charged with flinging too many familiars.
Without due care and attention.
They're all on my side. We're winning. We're winning already. Well, there's one friend there if you want to know what we're
A decent cannon.
Familiar rights! Familiar rights!
Get rid of them!
We, the League Against Familiar Flinging.
Yay!
At least 3 or 4, possibly 4. Believe that you, Mr. Henderson, have abused the rights of familiars. There has been flinging without due care and attention, enough consent on the part of familiars, or safety precautions in place. While we, the League, are completely opposed to familiar flinging, we recognise that society is not completely on our side yet. So we would urge Mr. Henderson to put in place proper safety precautions, proper consent for familiars before they are flung. Recognise that we need health and safety executives on site to care for familiars post-flinging. There have been cases of familiar destruction. And we don't wish to cause any harm to the wonderful thing that is the Surrey Convivial, but we do wish that familiars' rights are recognised.
Yes!
Damning charges indeed, Mr. Henderson.
Yes!
Now, before the court hears both sides of the story, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Guilty until proven innocent.
And for now, order! Order me a beer, will you, Carl? She's heard it before. Oh, come on, that's not entirely true, Mr. Scott. I mean, haven't you ever heard that phrase, drunk as a judge?
Sober as a judge.
So, everyone, we now have our first point of order. What evidence do you have that familiar flinging has not been held in the highest legal rigour with all forms of consent in place?
Thank you very much. Well, first, if you'll permit the League Against Familiar Flinging a short preamble, we will present our accusation in full and our evidence, including photographic evidence, witness testimony from familiars here present, and then, of course, we will let the accused speak in his defence, or indeed, if he has any familiars under his sway that he's coerced into speaking for him, then they can speak in his defence too. Okay, so the plight of fluffies, aka familiars, teddy bears, or soft toys, being on many occasions catapulted from a cannon
Hey! Love it, love
and
it.
control of Ben Henderson is hereby recognised in this complaint against the latter-named individual. Sounds official. The plaintiff is the League Against Familiar Flinging, managed by Louise Day. We're here under the LAF banner. You have to imagine the LAF banner. It's blue, it's very pretty, it's got teddy bear on it. On behalf of all steampunk familiars everywhere. Our accusation is that on many notable and public occasions, the person of Ben Henderson has knowingly, willingly, and gleefully launched familiars into the air with a purpose-built, fluffy launching cannon.
Oh, lovely.
No health and safety tests or assessments were completed as to the cleanliness of the landing zone. There's no record of the safe workings of the cannon. And most egregiously of all, no consent was recorded being given by the fluffies in question. What kind of travesty is this? I asked the members of the jury assembled here.
Off with his head!
Now hang on, let's not get on sorry time. We can't get ahead of ourselves. Hello.
We believe the first recorded instance of familiar flinging that we're aware of was approximately 4 years ago. Perhaps it was November, Surrey Steampunk Convivial XI, if my numerology is correct. We believe certainly the last 4 years. Anyway, we present as evidence exhibits A through C, and then our testimony will be heard as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll pass around the evidence.
Please make sure everyone gets a chance to read it. Let's have a good, clear, honest lynch mob.
There's 3 photographs of Ben Henderson next to a cannon and familiars being launched.
You can put down your pitchforks if you need to use a torch to see it, a better light.
Obviously, that's only photographic evidence. I mean,
Yeah, when has that ever proven anything?
I know. But we do have some testimony.
Oh, one moment, we have an objection! Oh, it's more shocking than that. It's just a little less shocking than that. That's the appropriate amount of shocks you should be. Okay, so, you have an objection.
Yeah, you ain't seen the photo yet.
It appears that Mr. Henderson haven't seen the photo, so we'll have to surprise him and find him out later on. Now, I believe we have our first witness. Would you please state your name for the court?
My name's Penna, and my familiar here is Scottush. He's very, very nervous. Actually, he's still a bit traumatised over the whole. That's why he's But yes, I've got his witness statement here. Do you want me to?
Yes, if you would please read for those of us who cannot speak.
Okay. All right. So I had to try and read my own handwriting because he was sort of speaking about 2,000 words a minute, so I had to literally sort
No,
of...
it's quite alright. Every time I try to listen to my familiar, all he says is which I think means get this out of my mouth, but I can't tell him.
Right, so here's a witness statement. I, Scottush, witnessed a terrible incident of familiars being slammed in the air by said rubber band thingy via a cannon operated by Ben Henderson.
Dun, dun, dun.
I heard their screams as their bottoms were slapped violently prior to being slung in the air.
Oh, God.
I heard their cries. Exactly, yes. I heard their cries, especially the family of monkeys who last year joined together as moral support, travelled in a group, but once in the air were separated. And whilst doing so, 2 from the group of monkeys hung on for dear life at the ledge of the cannon. I have since been terrified of narrow, dark places, and as such have asked my mum, Penna, for me to take me to court in my protective little bag, together with my familiar friend, Hippo Hart. And that's the end of the witness statement to you.
Oh, damning evidence, damning evidence. Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine?
Yeah.
Not this one, we've got plenty enough for the next one.
Excellent. This trial is heating up. It's not a tepid cup of tea anymore. This is not a storm in a teacup. This is something serious. Now, shall we call our second witness, or would the prosecution like to make a statement as to Ben's particular... Are they flying through the air with the greatest ease? Or, as they are stated, smacked their botties in mid-air?
The defence does not wish to cross-examine at this time.
All right, shall we call our second witness to the stand? If you would like to state your name for the court.
Hello, this is Boris Steamrat, and apparently I can't read his statement because I allow him to be flung, so he's asked if Eamon could read his statement instead.
If Eamon could please come to the stand.
In front of the camera, if that's all right with you.
Just in front of the cameras, everyone. Now you see, this is why we had to only have photographs out of court. We have to have a painter, because otherwise they never get through the photo shoots. Behind the mic, come on.
Behind the mic, rightio. Boris T. Steamrat, witness,
statement. I first encountered familiar flinging at the February 2015 Steampunk Convivial. I was told it was a fun sport which would enable me to fly.
And he did.
Quite untrue! Exclamation mark. I was unceremoniously shoved into a plastic tube, dragged backwards, and then released. Needless to say, I didn't have as much. I didn't fly much as crashed into the ground. Come on, let's build that.
Come on, it was more shocking than that. Thank you.
Well, this is the first time I've seen this. This is a statement new to me. By the way, I don't believe Boris has the same accent.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm really impressed you've managed to perfectly mimic his very strong New Zealand accent.
I have been subjected to this many times, and now I feel it's time to say, I do not enjoy it. That's
Liar.
It's yours and what he said.
It is indeed underlined as well.
Yeah, it's underlined. I do not enjoy it. My most awful experience is when I watched One Summer actually went one way and its eyes went and Cthulhu went. I'll read it again. My most awful experience was when I watched One Summer when a Cthulhu went one way and its eyes went another. Shortly followed by Diggory Mole narrowly missing a bin. That's where you put rubbish. That's what my accent. The creator of this horrible sport is Mr. Ben Henderson. And he should be punished accordingly. Not only did he create the sport, but it led to even more horrific event, familiar bowling. Facilitated by the known mistreater of familiars, Get Cox. Luckily, after one massacre, this wasn't repeated. Think of us, your faithful familiars and familiar familiars. All we want is a nice home and a hat, or back of a shoulder. Make an example of Mr. Henderson, so we can stop this evil event. No more flinging!
Fling.
Well, I think the audience is with you, but thank you very much. Okay, one last photo for the road, everyone. And we're good. Do you wish to cross-examine, prosecution?
Damn right we do.
Okay, if you would like to step up to the mic.
He's the defence. Alan, he's the defence.
I'm defending my client, Mr. Ben Henderson, in the name of Harrison and Harrison and Harrison and Brothers. First off, I believe that we're all familiar with the witness. I mean,
Familiar.
seeing as this is a court of public opinion, apparently, I think it's no disguising the fact that Boris is a little reckless. Yeah. You want to say that? And
You had it coming, Boris.
dare I say, has a history of drinking.
For the sake of public information, the last court I presided over was the drunkenness trial for Boris Steampunk. Ah, yes.
And
not proven.
in reference to that trial, is it not fair to say that a prominent member of the League was in fact on trial last time, charged with corrupting his moral stature?
The tables have tabled, ladies and gentlemen. Ah, here we are.
I think we can discount everything that was discussed at the last court case because I was proven innocent.
Sustained.
So this is all speculation, Mr. Harrison.
In that case, I shall address my question directly to the witness. Boris, did you not, have you ever not denied that you ever gave consent?
Now, you may have trouble in the audience figuring out what he said. It's just the accent, just get through it. Eamon, would you kindly translate in the best Boris impression?
Didn't give consent.
Thank you.
Defense rest.
Thank you for the defense. Okay, we have an objection from the audience, which for some reason is legal. Go on.
In the last court case, we also addressed that Boris is an old man. Yeah, it should not be flung.
That's true.
We did also determine that Boris is how many years old? 27? 200?
Technically dead.
In rat years, he's 856.
Now, so we've now discovered.
Him.
So Boris would have been 847 in rat years when he was flung.
Happy birthday!
So what you're saying that flinging old, vulnerable familiars is right?
Yeah.
So it appears that not only have we got an issue with consent, but also mistreatment of the elderly. Unless, of course, we consider the cannon to be assistive technology. Let's have a look at the defence as table. Anyway, so we have another witness. If you would like to come forward and present your name to the court.
Hi, I'm Martin. I've got some additional evidence. I actually go over the monkey cannonball. That caused us horror at the last convivial.
It certainly is quite horrifying, yeah.
Well, only after being flung, when bits of monkeys went everywhere. Oh, causing trauma to all other familiars.
Give us half a chance.
Yes. I've been on bits for several days afterwards.
Oh. Okay, so is that all the witnesses to be called forward? We have one more surprise witness. In that the witness is very surprised.
It's a peanut.
The what?
It's a peanut to pay court.
Apparently there was a subpoena. Apparently that's around the back. There's
So what?
So I understand you can present your name to the court. You also have some evidence to present.
I do. My daughter was traumatized by familiar filming.
Oh. So how did this come to pass?
Well, I can't remember which convivial it was, I'm afraid, but it was a lovely summer one because the familiar thing took place in the garden. I think she was 8.
8 years old and exposed to familiar film.
And we asked her if she would like her teddy bear to fly.
It's a problem we all face at some point in our lives.
And initially she was kind of all right with it. And then she saw the apparatus.
It's problematic for an 8-year-old.
She was distraught, and she decided at that point that she never wanted to fling a familiar ever again.
Yes.
But it was coercion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that your words have moved the audience enormously. Thank you very much. Does the defence want to cross-examine?
Yeah.
Yes, actually. I might have to call a counter-witness.
A counter-witness?
Yes.
Quick, can the nearest accountant please come?
We might have a counter monkey.
Can I call Dr. Darren?
Hey. Come on.
We now have a counter-witness, which for some reason is also legally available.
Dr. Darren, you are the room's most prominent expert on familiar physics, are you not?
I believe so. It's not for me to say such things, but that has been applied to me in the past. Thank you, yes.
Now, we all know that in the noble sport of familiar flinging, the familiar is placed into the launcher, and then the familiar appears on the other side of the room. But is it to say that they could exist in both of the same states at the same time?
Yes, I mean, I think what we're discussing here is what is known in physics circles as no-flinger's rat. The paradox of no-flinger's rat is thus. A rat is seen by everyone in a specific place in space-time and can be observed. When it lands, it is at another place in space-time and can also be observed by everybody else. There is, of course, the twin slot experiment, as we know. If you fire one photon of light between two slits, which are roughly the wavelength of light, and only one photon goes, it can be observed at the beginning, it can be observed at the end, but at that point, an interference pattern can actually be created by the diffusion pattern of a photon passing through each slot at the same time, although there is only one photon of light. A similar pattern occurs, obviously, with the projected rat. The projected rat, whilst it is in the actual tube, cannot be observed, and therefore it is in a state of quantum flux, both existing as flung and not flung, because no one can observe it. Therefore, the contention is, in scientific circles, that the rat is simultaneously flung and not flung.
My God, my brain.
My brain!
Ergo, no flinging occurred, thus there can be no pain.
Well, my contention would be that obviously flinging could occur or not occur, therefore the defendant is simultaneously guilty and not guilty, and as we all know, if there is any doubt at all, do please correct me if I'm wrong here under legal circumstances, if there is any reasonable doubt, then the witness and the defendant must be acquitted. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Now, one objection being that the familiar is itself an active observer of itself. The cogito ergo flung argument.
He also pleaded guilty until proven innocent.
He did.
I'm
so going to win this. No, wait.
I don't know who's winning or losing right now.
Participants coerce the familiars.
Yes, okay, is that another one at the back?
You know what, I have an objection.
By all means, go ahead.
The last witness for the prosecution stated that her poor child was distressed at the flinging of familiars in the garden.
Yes?
This is actually part of the familiar release program. In the natural environment. High velocity.
It appears there are environmental law implications we never considered. Releasing familiars back into the wild from captivity.
High speed.
I mean, does green fleece exist? Oh, come on, that was pretty. Yes, I do believe that unless we have any more evidence to present to the court, the defence gets their turn.
Only a closing statement.
A closing statement, and then you will have your turn, Mr. Harrison. So, do please continue.
We do not believe that Ben Henderson was motivated by malice, but we encourage him to think of the poor, fluffy teddies and familiars and ensure that they have clearly given consent for flinging. Ideally, after a competent third party, such as their owner, carer or friends, can confirm that they have the appropriate training. We suggest that a consent and safety check is performed and recorded prior to all flinging to ensure that it is carried out in safety, comprising of obtain uncoerced consent for familiars entered to the event, check of the flinging device for safety, check of the landing area, adequate healthcare facilities for injured familiars, no judgment for familiars wanting to back out of the event, sworn statement to the effect that all of the above has been carried out and that to the best of those present knowledge is all true, such as I do solemnly swear that all adequate precautions have been taken to ensure the well-being of those familiars taking part. We rest our case and our request, Your Honour.
A very adequately stated summary. So, if the court is satisfied with the prosecution, we now hear the defence. If the defence, Mr. Harrison, would like to step up to the mic.
Now, I might not be a big city lawyer with a well-prepared case.
In fact, last I checked, you passing the bar was literally over there.
I may not have had more than 45 minutes to prepare my client's case. However, I do have this convenient scrap of evidence that I produced on the back of a fag packet. First of all, I think we can all agree that my client is a pillar of the community. A good and honest friend to everyone. A great organiser of wonderful, wonderful entertainment. Especially the noble sport of familiar flinging.
It appears we have an objection from the audience.
Did he play pillar of the community?
Oh. Well, I suppose he does resemble him. He's quite tall. Anyway, wait.
It is my client's assertion that familiar flinging is to the betterment, and indeed the furtherment, of all familiar kind. At least as far as the room will go.
I don't think anyone is questioning whether familiars go higher during the flinging.
In order to attest to this fact, I wish to call a character witness. Can I call Cockney Panda to the stand?
Can And Cockney Panda, please come to the stand.
Now, you must attest, as our good friend from New Zealand had to translate for Boris, the defendant will in fact have to translate for his own character witness.
You know what? I'm willing to allow this. Please come forward.
I'm seriously doubting the validity of this judge.
We now have the testimony of Cockney Panda. A sentence I never in many years thought I would say.
It's not his actual name.
Can you please state your actual name as best you can for the court?
Panda Mush.
Panda Mush.
Panda Mush. Panda Mush. Panda Mush.
Yeah, that's half of the canon. Yeah, that's really
Oh, no.
He used to be Cockney Panda, now he's Panda.
Oh,
yeah.
He's alright. Cockney Panda. So I'll ask him a few questions. Have you ever been harmed after being flung?
He's shaking his head.
In fact, do you enjoy being flung?
I mean, it's compelling.
I have no further questions, Your Honour.
I mean, there is no provision for sadomasochism, I suppose.
That's what I mean.
Oh, God.
Somebody's fingers
Decent masochist.
How very dare.
Now, please, this is a family show, Cora.
That is one panda's opinion.
It is one panda's opinion.
Yeah.
And that is no way of justifying pandemonium. Okay, I found the bottom room. Okay, there we are. So, do you have any further defence?
A few momentary points. First of all, there is no rocket launcher. There is merely a familiar flinger. This is a carefully designed device that has been produced across multiple generations of cannon to carefully project a familiar across the room. They are in no way harmed by this process. In fact, I'm told that no precautions were needed because no rubber was involved. It's elastic. It's elastic. That's it. This gentle device, this beautiful little device, has in fact never failed to fling a familiar no more than about 3 feet.
I think we've order in the court.
It's my order as a lawyer. I can't tell the truth. That's kind of in short, the defence rests that asserts that the accused is in fact an honourably good person and actually is going to throw the case in favour of all of the new rules that the league want.
In summary,
because he's that kind of guy.
We've seen a lot of evidence, but how many of us in the audience have ever actually seen familiar flinging? How many of us have no idea what we're talking about and why are you here? Alright, in which case, perhaps it would be the final closing statement to assess his guilt if Mr. Henderson could kindly present Exhibit A and demonstrate what he considers to be a perfectly harmless activity, sans payload.
With the panda.
Panda.
If the panda is so keen on being flung.
Panda. Other way round. Let's see.
Mr. Henderson's reticence to produce the panda at this point is somewhat telling, worrying, and damning, and the league would like to win.
So those in the audience who are wondering exactly what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, you're not alone. Mr. Henderson.
Okay, well, I know that initially I was accused of flinging familiars and flinging too many familiars. In fact, I think was the case brought against me. In fact, I think you can tell from the photographic evidence that's passed around that I'm never actually holding the cannon. I'm never actually pulling back the elastic. So
it is in fact a complete fallacy. But who built this fine machine?
Oh, that was me.
The allegation is that Ben is the controlling mind behind the procedure.
As the supplier of the weapons.
Well,
as his lawyer would point out, Ben has never been able to control very much these events.
So, before there is a demonstration of any such flinging, can I just make sure that any fragile members of the audience are consenting or would like to walk right now, cover your eyes.
If any small children would like to cover your eyes.
We will be available if anyone needs any therapy afterwards.
Also, those of you in the direct firing line might want to just put one hand over your plank, just... Yeah, I said so. If you would like to fire, yeah, okay. So, Mr. Henderson, you have placed this panda in, but I don't think I heard any kind of statement of consent from the panda before it went in.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
He nodded, apparently. Okay, we'll accept that. Okay. Follow. I mean, who needs more than that? Here we go. So you are doing what next? What? He appears to have some difficulty with his tune. Okay, hang on. Stand back, chaps. For those of you sitting who cannot stand back, just do the best you can. Oh, the horror. The chord sustains the panda's impressive mid-air triple flip was impressive.
It's the first time he's ever done that, really.
But wait a minute, the first time he's ever done that.
Landed face down, everyone. Is that okay?
Oh.
No, his head. I think this panda is confused.
It's all right, Mrs. Brains.
No, my lord, you are completely correct. That's the first time he's ever been flung, and despite the accusation, it's the first time I have ever flung a familiar.
So the bear's earlier testimony was in fact a bare-faced lie.
And I've only...
I will not stop pandering to the audience. That's the entire reason they've hired me. So you have in fact never fired this cannon of your own volition.
But he has now, so he's guilty.
Because they asked me to.
Exactly.
He was false
I don't think we ever asked for that demonstration.
It's true, that was me. But luckily, I overrule it. Man, I love the power. So, after seeing that, the audience, i.e. the jury, must now start to make their decision, unless the defense has closing statements.
My client throws himself on the mercy of the court.
Hey, what up, Ben?
Okay, now we will naturally decide this in the most democratic way possible. In the way of Roman gladiatorial arenas. Thumbs up or thumbs down? So, I will turn around in a few moments and I will expect to see those thumbs in the air. So, thumbs up. He is perfectly innocent and acquitted of all charges. These are clearly masochistic creatures who wanted to be in the cannon all their lives.
Yes.
Or thumbs down, that Ben is in fact enabling horror violence without the appropriate safeguards in place to make it a safe sport for all time. So, I'm turning around and I will expect my answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, last chance to change your mind, 1, I'm turning around, now! Oh, it's looking tense, I'm counting them up.
That's not fair.
I'd like to remind the jury this is not rock, paper, scissors, okay? Okay, those of you with the tentacles, please stop trying. We know you're gaming the system. Oh, it's looking good. Oh, we've had some last-minute conversions, which for some reason is very impressive. I would say, overall, final judgment, the thumbs up has it. Mr. Henderson. In a startling display of modern-day justice, the ayes have it. It appears that Mr. Henderson is in fact a pillar of the community who merely happened to build a gun and supply it to people who maybe wanted to use it.
Tony Stark.
And people have been willingly giving these animals over, these stuffings, but I do think that as a caveat of legal judgment, some some sort of form, some consent forms should be drafted.
Yes.
It is a damning day for consent, but a great day for familiar flinging.
There will be consent forms, I promise. I promise there'll be consent forms.
I don't think we can afford helmets. The budget is stretched thin as it is.
Parachutes. Give them parachutes.
Perhaps next year we can...
Really good idea.
So perhaps next year we have an official rule for...
And all familiars have goggles, helmets and parachutes.
So next year's rules for familiar flinging will include safety apparatus. See, I've just invented an event, guys. So we're making familiar flinging safe again for the masses. There we go, he's accepted. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all our witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Thank you to Jared, Marion, and all those who helped them create a wonderful offensive statement. I think that's what it's called. And